Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing great. So today we will be discussing the Mendelian principles of heredity. So this is basically a very interesting topic of genetics. And what is genetics? Genetics means the study of hereditary patterns, like how the traits, the characteristics, the diseases, the physics of the parents are passed on into the next generations. So this is genetics. And we have progressed so much in genetics today, but it all dates back to one single person and one single plant. That plant was Pisum sativum, the garden peas, and that man was Gregor Mendel. So in early ages, people used to believe that the inheritance is a random process. Like the traits are passed on from parents to their offsprings in a random way. There is no law or no rule regulating them. But Gregor Mendel proved this wrong. Similarly, people used to believe that every child, every newborn child, inherit traits that are blend of both the characteristics of the mother and the father. For example, if a mother is having black hair and a father is having brown hair, the child will have a hair color which will be the blend of both these colors. But this was not the case. So, what was the case? Gregor Mendel told us what was the case. Gregor Mendel basically was a very intelligent kid. He was very observant, very good with his study. But today we remember him as an Austrian monk. So, why he went to the spiritual side? Actually, he fell ill when he was in his university. So, he was sent to this religious place to gain spiritual healing. But along with that spiritual journey, he also continued his academic education. He was very close to a professor who was basically a plant physiologist in his university years. He used to work with him, he used to assist him, and during his work with that professor, he observed the pattern of inheritance and he was so intrigued to dig into the laws regulating those patterns. He was the first person who applied the statistics and the math to this inheritance pattern to understand that. So, first of all, the question is why Gregor Mendel chose the pea plant for his experiments to study the inheritance pattern. There are many reasons to this. We'll look into them one by one. So, the first and most important reason was the pea plant has many different traits, many different characters that are passed on from parents to the offsprings, and they are easily observable. Like a common man can easily observe those characters from the eyes. Some of these characters here you can see on the screen. Like when we talk about the seeds of the pea plant, it could have different colors. It could be yellow in color or it could be green in color. Similarly, the shape of the seed can also vary. It could be round, like smooth, or it could be wrinkled, like rough. Similarly, the pod in which the seeds of the pea are present, they could also have different color and shape. It could be green, it could be yellow, it could be constricted, or it could be inflated. Similarly, the flower location and color can also differ. The flower could be purple or white, the flower could be axial or terminal. And the overall size of the plant can also differ. The plant could be tall or the plant could be tall. So these characters were very easily observable and they were great many in number. So this was one plus point. The second thing was peas are easy to grow. You can easily sow the seeds and get the pea plant. They reproduce quickly. The reproduction time of pea is how many days? Search it and tell it to me. Okay, so this is your homework. So they reproduce very quickly. Then they can also self-fertilize. You don't need to work hard to breed the peas. Then most importantly, it's emasculation. Emasculation means that removing the reproductive organs. So the removal of reproductive organs from peas was very easy and its pollination was also very easy. So this was the reason that made Mendel choose these peas as his experimental plant species. So what he did? What he did was initially in one of their characteristics. Like he took pea plants that had all the other similar characteristics, but they were only different in one character. And what was that character? That character was, he chose a plant, a pea plant that has white flower, and another pea plant that has purple flower. What he exactly did was, using a scissor, he cut the stamens of the purple flower. Stamens, if you remember, are the male reproductive organs of the plant. So using a scissor, he cut those stamens. And then, using a paintbrush, he took the stamens from this white flower and shifted them into the purple flower. So the carpel is of purple flower, the female reproductive organ is of the purple flower, and the male reproductive organ, that is the stamens, came from the white flower. After this, when this grew into a pod, into a green pod, he took the seeds of that pea and he grew them. What he observed? All the upcoming flowers of that pea plant were purple in colors. All the flowers were of what color? Purple color. This was interesting. Then he experimented this with the other traits as well, like of tall and dwarf, of round and wrinkled, and all these other traits he experimented. He would always find that in the first generation, there was one trait, one character that was dominating. Interesting. This made him formulate a law. We will come back to that law and the other two laws of inheritance which were formulated by Mendel. But before that, I want to explain you some terminologies, some important keywords that I will be using frequently in explaining those laws. So be very mindful and be very careful. So the first term we have here on screen is gene. What is gene? Gene is the reason on the basis of which we get a character. Like if I have black hair, this is because I have the gene for that black hair. If I have certain by birth disease, like a hereditary disease, it is because of the presence of that gene. So genes are basically what? The unit of inheritance. Genes decide that how a person will look, how a person's metabolism will be, how a person's inner organs will be. So all these are decided by some units which are called genes. Genes are present at specific location on chromosomes. And what are chromosomes? Chromosomes are made up of what? DNA. So for now, just remember that genes are the basic unit of inheritance. The second term we have is allele. A gene can exist in different forms, and each form is called an allele. For example, I launch a product, I launch a box, and I launch that box in 4 different colors. So that box is a gene, but that box can exist in 4 different colors. Each color is one single allele. So an alternative form of a gene that can occur on the same position on the chromosome is called allele. We know that chromosomes are always found in pairs. We humans have how many chromosomes? 23? 23 pairs and 46 in actual. So the chromosomes are found in pair. This is a one pair of chromosomes. They are called together as homologous chromosomes. So now you understand what is locus, the position at which the gene is present. What is gene, the basic unit of inheritance. What is allele, different types of genes, different alternative form of genes which can exist. The second term now we have is dominant allele. As I told you that Mendel observed that there was always one trait which was dominating, which was masking the other trait. So the trait which was expressing itself most is called dominant. And the trait which get masked by the dominant allele is called recessive. Remember the experiment which we just studied. A purple flower and a white flower were crossed together, and what he observed that all the flowers in the first generation were purple in color. So this means that the purple color is dominating over the white color. So the allele which is responsible for this purple color, we will call that allele as a dominant allele. And the allele which is responsible for this white color, we will call this as a recessive allele. So alleles could be dominant or recessive. Now, the term we have is homozygous. As I told you that we have the chromosomes in pair. At one particular loci, there will be a gene present of specific trait, let's say for a hair color. It could exist in different allelic forms. It could be brown, black, red, or any other. But if the allelic forms in these homologous chromosomes are similar, they are not different. Like here we have an allele of black hair color, and here also we have an allele of black hair color, we will call it homozygous. If one single allele is present at the same loci in the homologous pair of chromosome, then we will call it homozygous. Similarly, let's say the small b means brown hair color. So one chromosome is having the brown hair color allele and the other part of the pair is also having the brown one, then we will call it also a homozygous. But this would also not be the case. Sometimes the homologous chromosomes could have different allelic forms, so that is called heterozygous. Like at one loci we have a black hair color gene, and at the other locus we have a brown hair color gene, so this will be heterozygous. Hetero means different, homo means same, hetero means different. So if the allelic forms present on the homologous chromosomes are same, then they will be homozygous, and if they are different, then they will be heterozygous. Then we have is genotype. Genotype means the genes, the alleles that are present in that plant, irrespective of the expression. Like for example, the genotype of this chromosome will be both black and brown hair color. This is the genotype. But will both of them get expressed? No. Only one will get expressed, and though that which will get expressed will be what? It will be dominant. So the expression is actually the phenotype, the trait which is getting expressed, which you can observe, which you can see, is phenotype. And genotype is actually the presence of different allelic forms. Hybrid means amalgamation. You know, during COVID, during the corona period, during the pandemic, we had hybrid model of study. Like we would have some online classes, some physical classes. So this was hybrid. Similarly, if the mating, if the crossing is done between the parents, which have different traits, which have different characteristics, then this is called a hybrid. Monohybrid means when you are crossing the two parents which differ in one single trait, one single character. Dihybrid means when you are crossing the two parents which differ in two different characteristics. Now, we will study the laws of inheritance which were formulated by Mendel based on his experiment. Now we have studied all these terminologies, so I will be using them in explaining these laws. So the first law was law of dominance, which up till now you can yourself tell. What does law of dominance says? Law of dominance says if you cross two different parents, the next generation will exhibit only one trait. Like when a purple flower is crossed with the white flower, in the next generation only purple flower will be observed. So the characteristic or the trait that is observed is called dominant, and that which is not getting expressed is called recessive. Here you can see, now when these flowers were allowed to self-pollinate, to get mated naturally, in the second generation he observed was 3 flowers for every 4 flowers. 3 were purple in color and 1 was white in color. He tested this with other traits also. Like this was not only about the flower color. I shared different characteristics with you. The tall and short thing, the round and wrinkle thing, the green and yellow thing. He tested all these characteristics. And when he did maths, he would always found the similar result. In the first generation, only one character would dominate, so he gave the law of dominance. But in the second generation, the exhibition of that characteristic would be in the ratio of 3:1. Like 3 plants would be of the dominant allele and 3 would be of the recessive allele. The law of segregation states that one parent can pass one allele and contribute in the formation of the zygote. For example, if a parent is having alleles for both purple and white color, he can only pass either purple, either white, not both of them. So this is called law of segregation. So during the meiosis process, when gametes are formed and when parents pass their alleles to their offspring, they can contribute by passing on only one single allele, not both of them. So this means that both these alleles from the homologous chromosomes get segregated, they are separated. So this led Mendel formulate the law of segregation. This is also called law of purity of gametes. You understand that the gametes are pure. They can have only one single allele, not an amalgamation or a blend of both of them. So this was law of segregation. Here you can see in the first generation, all the flowers were purple, and the second generation, one of them was white and 3 were purple. So this was actually the genetic makeup of these flowers. This means that the color of the flower remains pure. It is not becoming the amalgamation of both white and both purple. So this can only be possible when in gametes the alleles are segregated, are separated, and the gametes remain pure. Now, the third law was law of independent assortment. For both the previous laws, the experiments were of monohybrid cross. Monohybrid cross means only one different trait was tested. But for formulation of this law, a dihybrid cross was made. What does this mean? This means that the parent plant were taken into account which differ in 2 of their characters. Like here you can see one parent will have yellow and brown seed, and the other parent had green and wrinkled seed. So how many characters here are differing? 2 characters. One, the color of the seed. Second, the texture or the shape of the seed. One parent is having the yellow color of the seed, other is having green. The second thing was, one parent was having the round seed, other was having the wrinkled seed. So this is called a dihybrid cross. So let's see what was observed. In the first generation, it was observed that all the seeds were yellow in color and all the seeds were round. Law of dominance. It means yellow color is dominant and the round shape is dominant. And when these plants were allowed to self-breed, self-pollinate, in the second generation, different phenotypic characteristics were observed. Yellow round seeds were present, green round seeds were present, and green wrinkled seeds were also present. Like it was observed that it does not mean that yellow seeds will always be round. You can see the yellow seeds which are round and yellow seeds which are wrinkled. Similarly, the green seeds are not always wrinkled. You can see here a green seed which is round, but a green seed which is wrinkled. What does it mean? That the yellow color is not responsible for the shape of the seed. Yellow color is not affecting the shape of the seed. If a seed is having yellow color, this does not mean that that will necessarily have a round shape. It can have either round shape or either wrinkled shape. Now, this made Mendel propose the law of independent assortment. What does this mean? This means that one trait which is passed on from one parent into the offspring does not regulate, does not control the expression of the other trait. Like if a parent is passing on an allele of yellow seed, it will not affect the passing on of the seed, of the shape of the seed. It could be wrinkled, it could be round. So this was law of independent assortment. Alleles are passed on from parents to their offsprings independently. One allele does not affect the passing on of the other allele. So this is called law of independent assortment. So these were the three laws. Law of dominance, which says that the characteristics which are expressed dominantly and which mask the expression of the other character are called dominant, and those characteristics which get masked are called recessive. Law of segregation. Law of segregation says that the gametes are pure. One parent can pass on only one allelic form, not both of them, not the blend of both of them. Law of independent assortment says that one allele is not responsible for the passing of the other allele. This decision is independent, this process is independent. Every trait is passed on independently of the other trait. So this was pretty much about the laws of inheritance. If you have any questions, you are free to ask. Thank you.